Good evening.
Good evening. This is Lisa.
Evening.
How are you all this evening?
Ah,
Y'all can hear me?
Yes.
yes.
Good evening.
Good evening, Lisa. How you doing?
Okay.
Get a hold that okay song so.
Taking it one day at a time, man.
It's not gonna get dragging through that one day.
Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes you feel like you're just dragging by, but trying to make the best of it.
Yeah.
This weekend I took a sabbatical. My version of a sabbatical. I just it was relaxing, but it was a question of you're not really going to do anything too much. So I just did things that made me happy. Finished some craft, went outside in the garden, watered some plants, came back inside, worked on some other little things. Um, it was like taking the weekend off and just doing things for yourself. But all that went away today because we went to school this morning and it was so much energy, so much energy. I got back in around 12 something, 1 something actually, and just collapsed. So, but I am here. We are here.
Yeah, and then
I
too, I
missed
know right now
it.
Trinidad have a little hot spell until the end of July. So
With the Saharan dust coming in full force as well. So I have to remember to call my brother and tell him take extra precautions.
You know, Catherine, what you just said, like where I work, at the end of the day, you come home and you're like so drained, and it's more mental,
mm-hmm.
some physical, but mental to the point where it's like having conversations with people, or it's just like it's overstimulating and you just want that quiet time. And it's like you have kids and stuff, and it's not fair to the kids, you know but it's just like you feel like you can't give anything more of yourself. You have nothing more to give.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny that we go to work, and we like Catherine said, she went to this school, and you really don't understand how people energy drains your energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even funny because other nurses where I work are saying the same thing. By the time they get home, it's like they have nothing more to give of themselves to their families.
Yeah.
And it's like how you balance that,
Yeah.
because it's just like a cycle, right? You work Monday to Friday, or some people work weekends or whatever, and you're off Saturday is to catch up. Sunday is to kind of prep yourself back for Monday, and it's just that cycle.
Yeah. But I think even the question and even this conversation right now leads into tonight's topic, which is about, as I was just reading. Sorry about that. From intention to action. But before you could even get to intention, you have to rest. And even for a lot of us, do you create space to rest, or do you do it when you reach burnout?
But then that's kind of like my question in terms of this cycle that we're in. Monday to Friday,
Mm-hmm.
you work. I'm telling you, by the time I step out of my office building, because it's not like my area where I work, there's not a lot of sunshine and stuff. And then by the time you step out, it's like you feel like you're released from a prison. It's just like that. And by the time you get home, it's just like you're drained. and you just want to unwind. Saturday is just unwinding, and then Sunday's back to like building up the momentum for Monday.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you take time for yourself, but with everything that's going on is how much time.
Yeah.
And living overseas in the US, it doesn't accumulate the same amount of time like, like Trinidad vacation time. And your time is everything is in one bundle. So you have vacation, sick, personal, everything. So you have to really be mindful of how you're using your time. And you're talking about, some people who have kids, when you're working and you have kids, like your time off, you save that for more so for if your kids have a problem with school and whatever. So it's trying to find that
Mhm.
balance and how to find that balance to give yourself enough rest.
And even within all of that, when was the last time you did something that you enjoy?
Listen, I called out yesterday and I called out tomorrow.
Because even this week again, I have been, engaged in not a lot of 5Ks because this is my third one. So when I saw the location of it, I told my sister because it was my sister and my brother-in-law, and we had another friend that went with us. And I was telling them, listen, we're almost halfway to the beach. Let's go. And when we're there, nobody wanted to leave. And then, well, of course, now after you get home and it's back to the regular wash, cook, clean. And then I said to myself, when was the last time I went in the bush? I am due for some bush. I want to go on a hike. I want to go on a waterfall. And I was like, I haven't been to one of those in a while. And then you would recognize that your body letting you know, hey, it is time to unplug a little bit. And it is time to stop going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing and go and do something that you truly enjoy doing. You know? So probably is the opportunity for you to ask yourself, when was the last time I did something that I truly enjoyed? Katrin, I'm seeing that you have your hand raised.
Yes. This is what my weekend was about this weekend because typically on a Sunday, I am going to service, and by the time I'm finished with that, it's almost about 3, and then you just spend the rest of the day sleeping, and I would have a sort of guilt feeling if you didn't go. But I'm working myself way out of that particular feeling right now. And it was on about Friday evening, I said, this weekend is going to be just for me. I'm not going to try to stress myself unnecessarily. I'm going to eat whatever is in the refrigerator. I don't have to cook. Um, I'm just going to do little things that I'm experiencing joy in doing. And there were some small projects I like decorating and so forth and doing DIY projects. That for me, even though it is something that might be using up a lot of strength, is not using up any energy at all because of the joy in doing it. And I was there sitting on the floor doing some things. I have my scissors, and it was such a wonderful weekend for me. Sunday, I got up, did my meditation, and then I just went right on back to a lazy, sort of relaxed. So I'm telling myself I will be doing more of that.
Yeah.
I will be doing more of that. There, before the rainy season really starts, there is a kayaking trip I want to go back on
Hmm.
up Solibia. And it's just a question of gathering about 6 people or so because the guy say he now just does groups. So I don't know if you're interested.
Um,
If we can go up the river. Um, and it's really, really serene and beautiful up there, particularly the dry season.
mhm.
And more of that, there's a bird watching place, hummingbird watching place I want to go
Good.
to,
Yeah.
and where they serve breakfast. So I just have to verify that it's not any driving uphill because I tell you, went to an event on Friday evening and where parking was assigned. People, I actually had to ask a man in the event, would he please help me move my car out of that precipitous place they call parking? And when I saw him move the vehicle, he literally reversed that vehicle out of a car park onto the main road, up what could only be a precipice. He was in the car, I was outside, and my heart was racing. And that solidified my decision to just rest for this weekend. Just rest. So I'm going to be doing more of that. Some changes are occurring in my environment, and I think there's a wonderful opportunity for me to make some changes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to some changes
Mm-hmm.
in the way I operate with me. So Lisa, I know the environment is two different environments and we're a little laid back, but girlfriend, if you can carve out just some time for yourself.
You know, Catherine, it's this weekend I had a 4 hour, so a total of 8 hours back and forth. 4 hour drive to pick up my son. And it felt like it was just an hour. It was very relaxing. And then when I went on the beach and I sat on the sand. You know, and it really make me realize like where I am now, I have the opportunity to do more of that. So I have to really make a conscious effort. And you know, even though you're saying like on Saturdays you're so tired and you're so exhausted and you're so this, kind of just make a conscious effort, because I tell you, I had to make a conscious effort to go to the beach when I was there. But it was so peaceful. You know, and you're just sitting on your foot in the sand and the breeze blowing and you're listening to the waves and so I really, like you said, have to make a conscious effort moving forward to do more of that.
Mm-hmm. Because it is within the stillness is where you would get the clarity as it relates to intention, so that you would know what the next step is, what the next point of action is, because a lot of time you're functioning in confusion and you're not even aware that you're functioning in confusion until you slow right down. Sometimes you really don't even know how much you're really functioning with confusion and that there is no clarity right now. And again, you really get the reset when you slow down, because I am very sure that after both of you have slowed down this weekend, some other things have become more clear. Yeah.
But you could feel the tension. I'm telling you, when I went to the beach, you could just feel the tension in your body literally fading away. Just sitting
Yeah.
down there, you could just, and you're just taking deep breaths and you're just being present, being in the moment. You know, there's like some little shells, and you just, it was really, 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 really nice.
Yeah. You really need to do more of it. And again, I know that we are all learning about patterns and stuff. So now you are able to identify, okay, my soul, mind, body is saying it is time to stop, it is time to reset, it is time to refocus. And it is time to ignore all the digital, your phones, your everything, and just slow down for a while and reset. And I was having a conversation even after the 5K while we were at the beach, and I was telling the friend that went with my sister and I that when I reach 60, I don't want to be in and out of the hospital. I don't want that. If you tell me when I reach 60, I will be going to different places in nature and like different beaches, yes. But I don't want to be in and out of the hospital at 60. And even when we got to the 5K, you recognize that so many when I got to that 5K, I was feeling a bit pressured because it's like it felt very official because you're seeing all the different categories of people. So you're seeing the serious runners and the stretching and then you're seeing the young people, and it was so many people. I was shocked at how many young people now taking the health so seriously. I was really, really shocked. Honestly, I was really, really shocked. And it is a good thing. And you're just recognizing that in comparison to the generation before, this generation, they looking at things, they have a different perspective, a different interpretation because the majority of people there were young people. And I tell you, it had children too. It had parents who had kids in strollers running with them. Parents who had kids in strollers running with them. And it even had a guy, his kid was on a scooter, so he was running, pushing the scooter with the child on it, just to make sure, he or she was part of it. And it was really different. And even in instances like this, and of course, with it, you get into network with a lot of different people and stuff, you would recognize that this and all is an opportunity to slow down, experience something new. So even in your area, Katrin, and even in your area, Lisa, you could look around for new experiences, whatever it might be. It might be something that you think that you're not into. And then you go, you participate, and you would realize, this is not so bad after all. So it is definitely something to look at. And now I am sure that you all are gaining more clarity as it relates to it is time to slow down. It is time to reset. It is time to refocus. And then out of that, that is where, as we discussed tonight's topic, the from intention to action would really come into play. Because unless you slow down, you would be certainly functioning from a lot of confusion. And then you would recognize even if you try to attempt certain things in the state of confusion, you're just getting more confused. You are just getting more frustrated. I know the feeling a lot. Yes, Lisa. Lisa had her hand raised.
Yeah, Lisa.
I
Lisa.
think there's a common denominator. There's a word that Catherine used, and it's feeling guilty for taking the time off. Like she said, she go to worship, and then when she don't go to worship, you feel guilty, and
Mhm,
that's the same thing. Like I came back from my picking up my son and whatever, and I was just laying there, and the thought of, oh God, my goodness, I have to go to work. That puts you into emotions kicking, your feelings kicking, right? And then something just says, Lisa, call out. And it was a battle within myself. Call out, don't call out, the attachment, the obligation you're feeling to go to work, the guilt you're feeling, from calling out. And you're like, but I need this for me. I need to reset. I'm not mentally ready to put myself back into that space.
mhm,
And the other battle I have with myself, oh my, is this me? Is this the carnal, or is this the spiritual side? You know what I mean? And it's like there is no wrong. If you know that you're not feeling well, or you know that really and truly you're not faking it. You understand what I mean? And I'm like, I just needed to not have to be in that space. And then I had to work on not feeling guilty about not, calling out.
mhm.
But I had to say to myself, at least, you have to prioritize you. You have to prioritize you. And I really needed that time to, rebuild and reboot.
Yeah,
So I think the common denominator, like I said, with Catherine and I, is that guilt we tend to put attached to when we need to take the time for ourselves to reset.
yeah.
And we have to really be mindful of that.
Mhm. And you see, that is what a lot of the topic has been discussing recently during the week in terms of the patterns. Because what you would recognize is that the guilt you are feeling is because of some external expectation of you, whereas your soul telling you something else. Because the strong intuition that you were feeling was coming from your soul letting you know, listen, we need to slow down a little bit. Let's pause a bit. And even it would be the same instance as it relates to Catherine in terms of your soul saying, despite the guilt within you, you're getting this strong indication that I need to stop at this moment. And for a lot of us, what we tend to do is we work through it in order to please some external person, some external source, or as Catherine said, you're feeling guilty of not going to worship, or even Lisa, you're thinking about calling out to work and you're thinking about all the different things, but at the same time, your soul knows something different. And for so long, a lot of times you would go against whatever your gut feeling is, but now you are learning something different in order to go in the direction of your gut feeling. And that is why I'm sad to say, for a lot of the generation that was before me and now I am observing, it is because of that now, a lot of them in and out of the hospital. Because whatever your gut feeling was, a lot of times you work through it instead of giving your body the time to slow, to recognize, to identify. And even for you all, it would be, yes, you would feel guilty because for so long you were taught, well, of course, by society and everything else, that this was the way to be, not recognizing that whatever is the intuitive feeling that you are feeling, or the gut feeling that you are feeling, that is the direction you're really supposed to be heading towards. Because in doing so, once you go against it, you're really going against your well-being as it relates to soul, mind, body. And it only feels unfamiliar now, but the more you practice it, the more you wouldn't even have a second thought in about 2 months. You would not even have a second thought. Even if somebody tries to convince you, you would say no, you wouldn't even think twice. And that is really what it is. And it is very, commendable that you all are in a space now that you are able to identify the difference, recognize the difference, and make this step, even though it goes against the feeling that you're having. Yes, Catherine, I'm seeing that you have your hand raised.
Yes, two things that when you were talking about the external expectation, I think sometimes too. I know in my instance, when I sat down and I looked at, even from the beginning of this year to now, when I looked at why are you doing certain things, you're going like a robot to do something, but why are you doing that? And part of it, when I looked, I saw this notion of, if I'm not there, it wouldn't get done, or it wouldn't get done as well. And so I have to be there because, people are counting on me and to be there. And I'm saying, if I was doing a lecture over in Japan, somebody would have to do it, or it will just have to just be done the way it is being done. It will work itself out. So why am I forcing myself to go when you really deep down inside you're going because you don't want people to think something else and something else and something else. And so once I was able to cross that barrier, I say, no, you don't have to go to a physical space to do what you want to do. And that was one thing for me. The second thing is I looked at over this particular weekend was how things flowed for me. Because usually I would make a list. I would have a list. I would really have a list. Every day I have a list. And This time, yes, I had a list, but you could say they were basically, it was like a loose idea of things that you might want to cast your eye on. There was nothing fixed. So if in the middle of stitching a cushion, I felt like walking outside, I just got up and walked outside. I didn't put any pressure at all on myself to do this to completion and then go and do something else. So in the middle, you talk about clarity. I know I was supposed to have a workshop this morning on a particular topic, and in no time at all, I got up from my machine and I was just went outside into the other working space, and it was literally, you could say, about 10 minutes max. I got the whole content for that next workshop and what its areas to talk about, how to do, make so and so, do little placards, do so and so and so and so. And that was done in 10 minutes. I just grab a piece of paper, jotted down the ideas, and off I was to something else. Whereas normally you want to sit down in a very structured way and you do this and then you do that, and then you do that, and then you go back and you worry about what it is you haven't completed. The weekend for me was really free. And that's what I kept telling myself. Live free, Catherine. Live free. Live free. Live free. Don't worry about anything. Live free. So if I felt like sleeping, I just slept right where I was. And so this was what made that particular weekend feel different. And I like that formula. I think I'm going to be working with that formula going forward.
That is, and you see, within that space is where you would yield the most results from. When you're going and going and going and going, you're really just frustrating yourself, because you're not giving your entire being the opportunity to really recuperate and to reconnect. And then in doing so, as we have learned during the week, what happens is that instead of tuning in as Catherine did in order to get the ideas for the topic that she had to present, now you would be in a space where you have to create it for yourself. So you're frustrating yourself. Nothing is working out in comparison to things just flowing to you. And that is really what happens when you're not tuned in. And in order to tune into everything, you really have to first slow down. And in slowing down, that is where the clarity would come from. And then also, that is where the intentions would come from. So after you slow down, you would get whatever the intention is. As Katrin said, she got the information for the topic that she had to present. And in the beginning, you would obviously feel a lot of fear and you would have, a lot of overthinking. But again, the more you practice it, is the more you would be able to trust yourself. But if you stay in that state of confusion, you will not be able to. And if you stay, you're just going, going, going like a hamster on a wheel, you will not be able to. You really, really will not be able to. And even, while, as I was explaining before, being on the beach with my sister and her husband and another friend you recognize, it had so many older people than myself there, just taking a bath, just relaxing, just unwinding. I know a lot of them probably retired there because there is no way some of them working. And a lot of times it is viewed as they're not doing nothing with their life and they're not, and they are. They are. Because sometimes you really, really need to slow down, and it is something that is not taught. You are always taught to speed up. You need to catch up. And in doing so, you would recognize too, with a lot of it is because of comparisons to others, comparisons to other people's lives, where other people are currently, and where you would think that you should have been. And it's not necessarily that, if you slow down long enough, you would get the next step required for you. But once you don't do it, you would always remain in a state of confusion and a state of chaos where you're always frustrated. But again, the choice remains with you. Are you going to practice it, or are you going to continue as you are? And even in certain instances, sometimes you reach a bump in the road. So what if you might start off, you slow down, you decide, okay, I really need to start to exercise. This is a nemesis for a lot of people. And then after a week, you decide, you know what, I'm really not feeling to do it this week. How do you really talk yourself through overcoming it in order to build back up the momentum? Or do you just decide, you know what, let me just let all of this fall long. I will add this back to my list at the end of the year of all the things I need to do for 2027. How do you get yourself over that hurdle?
There was a statement that was made in one of our week classes where the question was asked, when does thought ever override feeling?
Mm-hmm,
And the answer was thought overrides feeling when discipline is required.
mm-hmm,
And I have held to that statement. So every time I feel to not walk this morning, because I committed myself, I just got up on there and said, Catherine, you got to start. Just start. And I committed myself to exercising 3 times a week. So even if I shift the days around, it must be three. It has to be something really, really critical, not a feeling or don't feel like it. Has to be something that probably I have to start moving early in the morning to go to a workshop or to go to a meeting or go somewhere. Then I may not be able to walk on or exercise on that morning. But that is my mantra for staying with it.
mm-hmm,
When discipline is required, thought overrides feeling. And
yeah,
that is what I use to stay on, particularly on the exercise part. That is what I'm using.
mm-hmm. Anyone else? Because we all have the days when we really don't feel to, but what do you adopt or what do you practice to ensure that it is something that you can really overcome and continue? Or even, let me rephrase it, what stops you from, what prevents or moves you from deciding to doing? What moves you into that direction? Out of deciding and into doing.
I think for a lot of us, it's when you're back against the wall. And it's true. Like you're saying, I don't want to be 60 and having to
I
go
really
through and have a
don't
lot of,
want to.
but while we still young and youthful, we take a lot of things for granted and we're like,
Yes.
okay, I'll put it off for tomorrow. I'll put it off for tomorrow. I'll put it off until you get to that point where your back is against the wall and you're like,
Yeah.
because I remember someone made a statement to me, Lisa, you just wait until you're back against the wall before you decide to do things. Because a lot of times it's like fear of change. The number one culprit I think is fear of change, of letting go of this thing that you're holding on to in your head as truth. Not willing to take the risk because once you step out, you don't know what is really out there. And it could be a lot better than what you currently have or experiencing. But we're so afraid and we're so comfortable in this uncomfortable space that we live in
Yeah.
that we rather stay in the uncomfortableness than step out and take the risk.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm not sad. For a lot of us, it's not until you're back up against the wall.
Yeah. And again, I said when I went, and even now, again, as I am engaged with not a lot, but more, because right now I need to go back to, I need a hike. I need another hike. My bush battery a little low. I need to go back in the bush. Yeah, my bush. I realized that today. And you really have to go back to whatever it is that you enjoy. You really, really have to go back to it. Go back to it. Go back to it. Get the clarity. When you're feeling like you're unmotivated, you're feeling like, oh gosh, how am I going to catch back this momentum? That is a step that you could take. Sometimes you're feeling like you're back against the wall. And I am telling you now, I have been observing so many different situations, instances, circumstances where, when you ignore you for the sake of everything else, and when I say everything else, I mean people, place, and thing. When you ignore you for people, place, and thing, you would recognize at the end of it, the you that you ignore is the you that ends up paying the price. And during the week, we are taught that nothing is more important than you. And that alone should help you to understand that including you in the process is really part of the balance. And you really have to schedule you in as part of the process in order to ensure that you maintain whatever your balance is and whatever is required for you in the moment. Because a lot of times you would run to accommodate and do things for people, place, things. But when it comes to really, even I was looking at a video today, and a mother was explaining that since having children, she just has this notion in her head that these fruits in the house does not belong to her. The fruits are only for the children. And it is something that she had to work herself out of. Because as parents, you always want to provide what is best for the children. And a lot of times in doing so, you would just give it up and you remain without. But again, you really need to schedule you as part of the process as well. And a lot of times we don't do it. And again, as Lisa says, only when you're back against the wall and the same money you didn't want to spend on the vacation, you have to go and spend it by the doctor. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's more the same money you don't want to spend on the vacation or to buy the thing to eat, you have to buy pills. The same money you didn't want to spend to go on the hike, you have to spend it on some other monotonous thing instead of really scheduling time for yourself. And you see, once you go down that road, you know you're going down the rabbit hole because it would just go from, and again, as we learn about energy, once you are in that space, what you do is you attract more negativity. So then you keep wondering why these same things keep happening to me everywhere I go, every person I meet, and in everything that I attempt to do. Why am I attracting the same thing? And that is the reason why. So you really have to ensure that whatever space you're coming from, it is a space with clear intentions. And you know what you're working towards. You know what the goal is. And even as Catherine said, in terms of discipline, you really have to ensure that you override whatever thought you might be having. Yes, Lisa?
One of the things that you said, and I think for the generation after me, compared to the generation, my generation and before, in terms of, that lady you said you was talking to, where I think more so for women than men, we lose our identity in our marriage, in our husband, in our children.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, like exactly what you're saying, I would spend on my children and don't think twice about it. But if it's something that I have to do for myself, it's always, well, I have this bill to pay, or I have this to do, I have that to do. And I would just not feed into myself or give to myself. And I have a niece, and it took me a while. I'm not lying. It took me a while, a long while. I'm talking about years. And she has kids, and she would buy snacks, and she would hide her snacks and not give any to her kids. And she would tell her kids straight up, no, no, no. And, growing up, coming up from like with my parents and my generation, I'm like, how could you? Is that love? Who does that? And, I would, in my head, it's like, it was a hard, hard, hard pill to swallow. And you all better figure it out. And if she said no, she means no. I am not doing it. And I'm not doing it. I don't care. You cry, you whatever. I am not doing it. And really, it was a hard, hard pill for me to swallow until like her kids are grown and they're so independent and so self sustainable. And I look at sometimes my kids and how dependent they are on me for simple things. And we really don't realize how much we enable our kids when we think that we are doing the best for them by giving in to them. And, no, you don't need to wash. No, you don't need to wash the dishes. No, you don't need to make a bed. No, you don't need to do that, because I want you to focus on studying. I want you to do this. And, you know, sometimes you feel like you come back to, kick you in the butt at times, because it's like, you feel like, oh my God, I gave so much of myself to you. And here you are doing you. Because I had to deal with that when my kids become of age and they're like, okay, I'm going to the movie with my friends. I was like, what? You know what I mean? Because I lost myself in giving so much of myself to my kids. So I think, yes, the generations before, that was what we knew. And even looking at the younger generation, sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow when you see them do something totally different, because you're thinking that it doesn't show love. But which is worse, having your kids being, enabling your kids, or making your kids be self-sufficient?
Yeah.
So that was a big thing for me, and I'm still working on that. And even for myself, it's such so damaging, because once again you're saying, I don't want to be 60 and be going into the hospitals, but we negate ourselves, we sacrifice ourselves so much for our kids. So sometimes it's not like you're doing it intentionally. But we as women, we sacrifice a lot. I can't speak for men. Like there are men in the group, you all could speak up on this, but I know for like women, we just give so much of ourselves.
Yeah. I think for everybody, you really, 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 because even, in a lot of instances with men and working and stuff, because a lot of times they get really consumed with working. And again, they don't schedule time for themselves either. And I know you think that that is not important. What is important? I have to provide for my family and I have to do this and this and this and this and this and listen. In the grand scheme of things, you really have to slow down. You really, really, you're not seeing the, and again, I keep saying that because there was this one particular company that I worked for that has closed down now. And it was like a running thing where as soon as the men retired, in less than 5 years, they would die. And it was a running thing. It was. As soon as these men retired, in less than 5 years, you would receive the death news via the email that this person has passed on. And sometimes you're going so hard, and you're not really taking enough time. You're not taking enough time. And
Good
yes,
evening.
yes. Hello.
Yeah, y'all know I'm gonna speak on this. Well, good evening, everyone.
Hello.
I'm not sure how many other men we have here, but definitely what you are saying is so poignant. I think it is so important. And I heard you, Lisa, and I think maybe Catherine, you mentioned the same thing that I think we all have these challenges where we feel we have to perform society, family, religion, and so forth and so on. And I will say, regardless of the culture, us men, especially, I'm not gonna speak for on behalf of all men because I don't know all of them, but I will dare say I think a lot of us guys and a lot of us who are trying to do right, we are suffering in silence. What it is that you don't want to speak up, otherwise you're gonna look weak, right? What kind of man are you? You're complaining. That's your duty. Is it really my duty to kill myself over because I want to take a break and I don't feel like I can take a break? I cannot take a self-care day. So I think the challenge is real. And from a cultural standpoint, again, I remind you all that I'm Haitian and I don't know Trini that much, but I would say West Indian and African, we share certain traits. But I will tell you, I've been living in the United States for so long, more than in my own country, unfortunately. And I will tell you, it's the same stigma around the men who are trying to do right and having to put up with their wives. Even if the wives are saints, ladies, you are all are saints as far as I'm concerned. However, some saints have horns. So it is really hard to navigate, and I'm a bit more sensitive on Discord because that's part of my work right now at my job, where I'm reaching out to the fathers, doing some work with the men. And there are times you can tell that the guys, if it was not for society, these men would be crying, but they don't. They're trying to hold up, or still the stigma, right? But they're pouring their heart because it is so tough, the challenge, and they're trying to be there for their children also. So I applaud you, ladies, but man, we are carrying our own course, and I think we need to kind of change the conversation from man, woman to life, and how do we come together as a unit to raise these families, to raise these children, and to better each other's life. Because as far as I'm concerned, I don't think we were set up to be each other's enemy, but yet society turned it into like a feud between the sexes. Me, I said, the ladies, you have won. Just give me my piece. That's all I need. Thank you.
Yes, I think that you see, even in listening to you and listening to the other perspective, which was this perspective, you would recognize that now, well, with this generation, well, now it is becoming more open where you really have to prioritize what is best for you as an individual. Because again, just as you say, you're suffering in silence, and a lot of times you're drowning, but you all make it so that we don't know that you're drowning. We don't know that you need help. We don't know that you require a little bit of support right now. You don't make it known. And even for the persons who are closest to you, we would love to offer support, but if you don't let us know that, then it will never be known. And I remember I was having a conversation with my sister once, and she was talking about, certain weights of being a parent. Certain things get heavy. And I was telling her, with certain instances, as a parent, a lot of times you try to, as much as you could, not let the children know to an extent what is happening. And I was telling her, let them know the truth. Because you're carrying all this weight, and it's like essentially you're trying to save face for what? In certain instances, yes, not everything a child might be able to discuss or understand or whatever might be privy to or should be privy to. But it have other instances. Listen, this is what it is. What you are requesting right now, it cannot be done at this time. Let them know the truth. And I was having another conversation with my niece recently, and that is something that she said. She said, Auntie, it could be what I appreciate about you is that you would always tell me the truth. It could be something that I don't want to hear and not willing to accept or whatever it is she say, but you would always tell me whatever the truth is. And you see, in doing that, you're giving them the opportunity to build their little character, build their self, build their ability to also make decisions. And I am telling you, these young children have a lot of solutions to the things we are frustrating ourselves about. I would tell you again, this same computer desk that I have my laptop on, one of the wheels kept coming off, and my dad, I asked my brother-in-law, both of them say use glue and this and that. And I spoke to my nephew one day and he was like, why you don't just get a screw and screw it in? And I was like, yeah, that makes so much sense. And sometimes you're trying to barricade or prevent them from, certain truths, but they just might have the answer to whatever it is you might be experiencing. And I have realized that on many different occasions with my niece and nephews. Yes, Lisa, I'm seeing that you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, SGL spoke up, and it's like what you're saying is true. Like, a lot of men, they don't speak their truth, right? But I think um, one of the things we have to do for both parties with our kids is, as a man, talk to your sons and let them know it is okay to be vulnerable. Talk to your sons, because we grew up in this era where, for boys, why you crying? You're not supposed to cry. Only girls cry. You know what I mean? So as men, we need to educate our boys. It is okay to be sensitive. It is okay, because sometimes, as a female, and I think we don't have a lot of conversations with different sexes talking about um putting things on the table, you know and as a woman, like Adana said, we would love to support you guys, but we don't know. As women, a lot of times, especially as for single parents who have boys, we need to let our boys know that it is okay to be vulnerable. It is okay to cry. It is okay, you know, to be there, because sometimes your wife might need that support. And when you put on this macho way, then how would she know? So we have to start to break that cycle of men feeling that they're not supposed to speak up, as well as women, you know, investing in self care. And like SGL said, men also need self care, because growing up, we don't think a man go to work and you work, you bring the money, and that's it. That's your role. For us females, like your house, well, I'm supposed to cook, clean, and we have problems in households when you have those kind of stigmatism between gender roles and female roles. And it caused a lot of problems in marriages, because it's like, okay, if you have a two income household, it's whoever get home first should cook. It's not like, oh my God, the woman's supposed to cook, clean, wash, and this is your role and that is your role. It shouldn't be like that. So we really have to work with educating ourselves and educating the younger generation, letting them know that, you know, in relationships or in your life or in anything, is a give and take, and we all need to pour into ourselves, because before we could pour into someone else.
Yeah. And you really, really have to tune in. You have to tune into you. You really, really have to. Because again, a lot of times We say it, we come on here and we say, ask yourself the question, see what comes. And sometimes what comes is something that does not make any kind of logical sense. But it's not really about what is making logical sense. And it's really about what is best for you in the moment. Because in tuning in and in plugging in, remember, the soul knows what is best for you. And sometimes it might be a difficult conversation and comfortable situation, but you really have to plug into you before anything else. And even as Catherine and as Lisa was explaining before, there is what you know within, and there is what is expected from the environment. And just as they expressed like over the weekend, they had to make the choice: do I choose what my soul is saying, or do I choose based on the expectation of others? And you really have to start to practice. And I know it is difficult. And I know, of course, this is something that you are unfamiliar with, you are unaccustomed to, as it relates to functioning from your soul, but you're recognizing that for so many years and for so many of us, we have grown accustomed to functioning completely from your mind and whatever that pattern was. And now it feels very unfamiliar to attempt to break the pattern and to do something else. But as soon as you practice it or you go in the direction of whatever your soul says, you would recognize, over here is really a different experience. I don't have to fight up as much. Things are just flowing. And you're recognizing that in doing so, you don't have to create the way because the way is already created. All you have to do is make the next step. All you really have to do is make the next step. And that is how you could really move from intention to action. But before that, remember, you must first have clarity. In order to gain clarity, you must slow down. You always hear the word sometimes, be still. Or even you get up in the morning, you ask yourself the question, what is required for me today? What is my body telling me right now in this moment? What is my soul saying? Do you even stop to identify and recognize what that is? One, do you stop to even and recognize what it is? And then two, after you hear what it is, do you follow? Or do you ignore it? You really have to ask yourself the question. And for some of us, we are getting these same messages over and over and over and over again. And yet you're making the same choice to function from the pattern that was built from your mind, and you're continuing to ignore the messages from your soul. And remember that the messages from your soul, sometimes you might be getting the message to drink more water, or start to exercise because, again, remember, your soul has the map, and your soul knows that if you do not start this thing today, you're going to meet the results of it in a few years. And sometimes, your soul trying to work you away from that, but because you're so stuck in the pattern, you are unable to. So then, after the few years, you end up where you don't want to end up. And then, of course, it have a lot of other complications as it relates to that. So you really have to start to slow down, and see what is flowing from within, and not just accept whatever is happening in the environment as a response to people, place, or thing. Yes, Catherine?
Yes, what I wanted to add also is we have desires. We have things that we want to accomplish in life, and the start we may not even recognize where the achievement of what we want to accomplish began. So the exercise may not even be for, in addition to the health benefits, you may want to get introduced to the CEO of a company. And you may find that on the morning that you decide to not walk or not exercise, that person was supposed to be along a path where you would interact. And because you did not exercise, then you have put off something that you wanted unknowingly. See, so sometimes it may not even always be about health, although the health is the number one goal. But since everything is connected, then the beginning of the achievement of something may not be what you think it is, but by being there. So when the little voice or the inspiration comes to do something, that is where you have to go through and follow through with that, because it may be linked to something that you actually want to accomplish. And therefore, even something as, take for instance, Friday evening, I went to a networking event, and it was the second one of its kind. And I made a commitment. I say, even though Friday night is a night I just like to just unwind for the week, watch a Nigerian movie, just curl up. I said, but you want to increase your networking. There's some projects you work on during the week that you want more people to know about, and you want to change a pattern. So how will you change the pattern if you just lie down at home? And then I started receiving these invitations from another lady who is organizing these soirees. And I say, this might be it. This is the way has opened up to provide the experience. And it's just once a month. And the cost is very, very manageable. So you would go. And I went to the one on Friday, and all fright to the precipice aside. But I was able to meet a number of persons whom, if I had to sit down waiting on a phone and trying to get through to these people, I may not get through to these people. And of course, Befitment has its cards, so people like to pull a card and read, and it opens doors. So the exercise, the getting on, the changing of the pattern, the changing of the old way of doing things, you can see other doors opening. Even if it doesn't look like a door that's opening, you may think, oh, this is just exercise. If you're looking for a relationship, as you're walking along, somebody may say, hi, I see you walking ever so often. Good morning, my name is so-and-so, and it may begin there. So when the inspiration comes, when the little thing, go and do this now, if we go and do it, you will see something else is opening up. But back again to when discipline is required, thought overrides feeling. So that is really, for me, this is where I'm trying to work right now. Go and do it, and then go back to whatever you were doing.
Yeah. And I would like to read something for you all from the app, of course, which we have not been on in a while. And here, can you all see it? Yes? All right. So for today, we would be looking at, of course, the category work-life balance. Can you all see it and hear me? Yes? Okay.
Yes, yes.
So the insight was, why wait for the right moment, the perfect conditions, the approval, or the certainty to start living? Freedom isn't found in waiting, it's created in choosing to move, to feel, to experience, even when things aren't perfectly aligned. The life you're waiting to live is already within reach. You just have to stop holding yourself back from living it. And of course, we have the YouTube video, we have this story, and let me just read two paragraphs from the write up. Look at your current reality. You are probably holding yourself back more than your employer is. You might be staying quiet in meetings because you fear judgment. You might be staying in a toxic role because you fear the uncertainty of a job search. You might be working 60-hour weeks because you fear what happens if you stop. But the life you are waiting to live, the one with balance, with purpose, and with less anxiety, is not in the distant future. It is available the moment you stop waiting for approval and start making small, brave choices. You are not waiting for life to start. You are living it right now in the chaos, the imperfect meetings, the tight deadlines, and the tired evenings. The freedom you want is not a destination, it is a verb. It is the choice to move, to feel, and to experience this moment, not the imaginary perfect one. Stop holding yourself back. The work-life balance you are searching for is already within reach. You just have to reach out and take it. And a lot of times we really don't reach out and take it. You just stay, and for some reason you convince yourself that you're in a box and I can't come out of this box. But the only reason you can't come out of the box is because that is what your mind is telling you. If you slow down, just as Lisa did and as Katrin did over this weekend, you would recognize that the thoughts are beginning to flow. The thoughts are beginning to flow, and sometimes, well, not sometimes, all the time. The only person blocking you is you. There is nobody else. There is nobody else to blame. There is no other experience to blame. There is no other person, place, or thing to blame. It is only you that are blocking you. So this might be the opportunity for you to slow down long enough to just pause and allow the thoughts to start to flow again, so that you would be able to move from just intention or uncertainty or fear or anxiety or whatever you might be experiencing to actually putting things in place and beginning to act. And with that, I would like to let you know, of course, because this topic would be continuing for the entire week. So let me also let you know what we have for discussion this week. So tonight, of course, the topic was from intention to action. Then on Tuesday, we would be looking at wanting is not winning. Everyone wants results, but fear blocks the process. Then, of course, we have our fuel and flex full body workout sessions. Then on Wednesday, we have counseling and consultations from 10. And then from 6 p.m., we have managing resistance and discomfort. Achievement demands behavior, not merely intention. Because a lot of times you have the thought in your mind, but your behavior remains the same. So, of course, we would be looking at that. Then on Thursday, we have counseling and consultations from 10. And from 6, we would be looking at building systems within your identity. Sustainable success is built on routines because, again, as Katrin was explaining earlier as well, the routines also come out from discipline. So once you have more discipline, you would have better routines. Then from 7, we would be having our fuel and flex full body workout sessions. And on Friday, we have our yoga and meditation, a private session from 10. And from 3, we have free to be, where you can release, relax, restore, and unwind, of course, by appointment only. And on Saturday, we have counseling and consultations again. And then from 3 p.m., we are closed. So I know that tonight's session, you all would have a lot of things that you really need to think about a little bit more. And even for those who are not yet on our Genius Goals mindset sessions during the week, you can feel free to join if you would just like to experience it. Free for 7 days. You could WhatsApp us and let us know. And then I am telling you, once you experience it once, you would certainly be rejoining us because a lot of the questions that you would have, they would be answered during those sessions. And it really helps to set you up to build things, to build on a better and a sounder foundation. So, guys, I hope you have a wonderful night, a wonderful week. And as you move forward, ensure that before you make any action, ensure that you have clarity, ensure that your intentions are clear, and that you know what your next step is. So have a good night, everyone. See some of you next Monday, and then see some of you tomorrow night. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Right.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.